welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another D3D4 Football Podcast. Loads of action took place yesterday. I hope you enjoyed your weekend wherever you were and whoever you were watching. Today I'm delighted to be joined by the best EFL pundit there is on the market. It's Mr. Sam Parkin. And before anyone clocks on, he did play for Swindon. But then again, nobody's perfect. So there we go. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
James, you're too kind, mate. Thank you for your very kind words. And let's hope we can get on, despite our differences potentially in our football teams that we follow.
Yeah, indeed. I'll forgive you, mate. It's all right. No problem at all. Loads to talk about. Fantastic weekend of football, actually. Loads of goals flying in everywhere. League One threw up a few surprises. A couple of really good games sort of at the top end of the table. We'll go through all the action as we do as usual. League Two, again, a familiar club as well for all of us, not paying their players. Obviously, really depressing situation that we saw over the summer with Bury and Bolton. And this just highlights that there are still difficulties for clubs in the EFL, which I think we'll talk about at a later date in more detail again, but something does need to change, and let's hope it does over the coming season. Let's hope some structures are put into place that prevents another catastrophe like we saw at Bury this summer. But let's jump into the football, and let's start, as we always do, in League One. League One. And I'm going to start with AFC Wimbledon because it's been a very difficult start to the season for the Dons. They've had no luck at all. Bad results on the pitch. Obviously, Wally Downs being suspended for breach of betting regulations last week. So, and then they didn't even pick up a win. But Glyn Hodges, a player I watched actually a lot as a player when he was playing in the early 90s. I remember him well from Sheffield United. He clearly has had an effect on that team. And they scored 3 first-half goals to beat Rochdale yesterday. Had to cling on a bit at the end, but that's a very important result, Sam, because not only is it a result against a team in and around them, but it's an important result in terms of it shows what they're capable of, and that's been the big question some of the fans have been asking this season.
I thought it was an enormous result. I mean, I couldn't really believe my ears when the goals were flying in the first half. So that will really help with confidence. What I will say on it is it's no good for footballers when you have that uncertainty above pitch level. They need to sort that managerial situation out because players we're a nightmare. We'll be speculating every day. People will be creating rumours about who's potentially coming in, and it can have a disabling effect on results. So I was surprised at the manner of the victory, because even though Rochdale got a couple late on, it sounded pretty convincing. And in terms of the lineup, yes, same setup that Wimbledon have gone under Wally Downs, the 3-5-2, even though obviously Wally's not in charge at the moment. And some young players getting an opportunity, Osu and Saunders in the lineup. I felt they lacked a bit of mobility from midfield. They had it in the wider players, but I felt from the centre of the park they were just a little bit pedestrian at times last year. So that's one noticeable thing from yesterday's team, and also the strike pair in Force and Pig at that level should plunder plenty of goals, and Force is one. I just scratch my head as to why Brentford have let him go. He's a great signing for AFC Wimbledon. I'm sure he'll get them a good return of goals, and you would think, probably get them away from the relegation zone. It's going to be tough, but 2 good goal scorers there.
Yeah, Rochdale, another club that are down there. They've had an awful run. I mean, you look at them and you think the great result they got against Manchester United in the Cup, and the performance actually that they put in. Their possession data is fantastic. I think before yesterday they'd had better possession data in 10 of their games, but they'd only won 2 of them. And it's all very well having the ball a lot, but those defensive frailties we saw last season that at the start of this campaign looked like they were behind them, they're just starting to creep back in now. They've conceded 3 against Wimbledon yesterday, 3 against Wickham the weekend before. In a couple of weekends back, they've conceded 6 against Peterborough. So a few concerns for Rochdale. Do you think that they maybe will have another season of struggle?
Oh, I think it's difficult. I think they've shown enough to suggest that they're going to be away from the danger zone, I think. Maybe just taking their eye off the ball a little bit, considering their success at Old Trafford, because it's two defeats that you maybe wouldn't have envisaged. And as you say, James, I think terrific with the ball. I don't think that's ever in question, giving another young player an opportunity yesterday in Tavares to go alongside Matheson. But I think defensively, you're right to highlight that. Sanchez, the goalkeeper, was very inconsistent, I felt, at Forest Green. And they've got a couple of lads I know very, very well that I've played with, Jimmy Keohane, Calvin Andrew, but they're being asked to play different roles to what they have done for the majority of their careers. So there's nothing to say they can't be adaptable, but I think defensively is going to be the issue for them moving forward, because we clearly know that they're creative going the other way. And in Ian Henderson, I know he didn't start yesterday, but he's always liable to get you goals.
Speaking of defensive issues, Southend, my goodness me, they've conceded 28 goals already this season. That's worse than Bolton. I mean, and Bolton are dreadful, let's be honest. I mean, they've had most of their games this season with playing with their kids, and the fact that Southend have just absolutely, I don't know, they started the season really badly under Kevin Bond, and they just can't seem to keep any sort of clean sheet. I mean, I know they went to MK Dons, and that was a massive result, but I'm not convinced that changes anything as it stands. I think that the two results that have subsequently followed that show that they are still, in a big hole. Defeat at home to Accrington, with Accrington struggling, that was disappointing for their fans for sure. Going to Gillingham, conceding 3, and I think Gillingham missed 2 penalties in this as well. So, it does highlight that this team are just all over the place at the back. And okay, no manager at the moment, but the names being linked. Sol Campbell, Sam, that's one I think is quite sensible. Henrik Larsson, that's a bit left field if you ask me.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I always say when these, top players, Premier League players, Champions League players get linked to League One, League Two clubs. I mean, if I was in that dressing room, I would have loved it. I mean, I'm a football nut. And, to have someone of that ilk come in, you can't help love it. And, you pick their brains and, listen to the anecdotes, as long as they're open to telling these to the lads, you'd absolutely love it and you'd be inspired and you want to go and play for these people. But I find it difficult to fathom that he's taken much notice of League One over the last few years. And, it's difficult to come up with a structure and to come up with the tactics really to get you success. So there's one thing not knowing the players, but also knowing how to, battle against teams that play, ugly football at times and stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into it. I completely concur with you. I think Sol Campbell, on the face of it, looks like a very sensible one to be in the betting. He was brilliant at Macclesfield. We all wrote him off probably prior to him getting that job, and I thought he was sensational. And it's a very similar role that he'd be taking on. Yes, it's a division higher, but it's a team in dire straits. I don't think the squad's good enough at all. Just if you look at the players that are available, Gary Waddock's been scathing of the recent performances. I don't think he's getting any better. And yesterday
was pretty poor, wasn't it? I didn't have any faith in that recruitment over the summer. A lot of players coming in who you look at and you think, are they going to be able to cut it at this level in League One? It's transpired that that's actually kind of been the way it's worked out so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you have a lucky escape, it's an opportunity to rebuild, isn't it? And we can say it about a few of the clubs. You can say it about Wimbledon as well. I mean, fantastic to be able to achieve what they did the back in the last season, but then go and build on it. And Kevin Bond started the season at Southend by just, we used to say it when you're in the dressing room, the manager's got the old lottery balls out again, or he's, putting his hand in the FA Cup draw and picking out the balls, in terms of the shirt numbers. And that looks like what was going on at Southend. You just couldn't predict what the lineup was going to be, different systems. And he found a formula at the back end of last season. So I was very surprised that they didn't have a bit of consistency. And yeah, I mean, yesterday could have been 6 or 7 bowler counts. You mentioned the 2 penalties. I think they passed up a number of opportunities as well. So that needs to get sorted. Like I touched on earlier with Wimbledon, the players, it's very difficult to be playing for a caretaker.
It is indeed. Very good result for Gillingham after a poor display at Oxford last weekend. They'll be pleased with that because, I think when you come away from home and you play as badly as they did, you need a response, and that is exactly what they got yesterday. And also a shout out to the Southend Trust, or the Shrimpers Trust, who do walk the 33 miles to the game for charity. Brilliant stuff. Always like to see that kind of thing going on in the lower leagues, and deserves a shout out. And Steve Evans, 250 quid he put in from his family, so fair play to him. Although he said his wife wasn't going to be too pleased about that. I'm sure she's not going to be very happy with him for saying that publicly, but there you go. Lincoln City, they beat Sunderland 2-0. Now, Chris Stringer, who's normally on this podcast with us, he was there yesterday, and he was scathing about the Sunderland performance. It was really, really poor from them. But just before we jump into Sunderland, Sam, I think it's important to note that that's Michael Appleton's first win in charge. What do you make of his appointment? It's early days in his tenure. As an Oxford fan, I think he'll be fantastic. But it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on him because, I think that's a sensible appointment after the Cowleys.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting appointment. Obviously, he's not been a number one for a while, but I think the type of football that he played once he got his squad in place at Oxford was very exciting. It's a difficult job considering what the Cowleys did. I mean, it's a very unique job, you would say, after just the success they've had. I mean, I think they were toiling in the National League when they took over. It's been success after success, that club. So on one hand, I'm sure he was a little bit tentative initially, just thinking about that. But I think, it's a great club with big support. If you can continue that momentum, there's no question that they can get in the Championship, I believe. So, no, good appointment. And yes, lost at Blackpool last week, but by all accounts, again, yesterday, that was very comprehensive. Andrade back to his best, and Walker, who has maybe not been as consistent as we envisaged. 7 goals, I think, for him now, and he was explosive as well. So Sunderland well beaten and can't have any complaints.
A lot of pressure growing on Jack Ross. Sunderland fans got the hashtag Ross out trending on Twitter. I don't know. I mean, it's the nature of the performances, because results-wise, you can't argue it's been dreadful. Results-wise, it's not been too bad. They've been drawing far too many games. I think we put out this 19 1-all draws since his tenure began, which is ridiculous. But yesterday, he even said after the game, they got what they deserved. But where do you stand on sort of the pressure building on him? Do you think Sunderland should stick or twist?
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I've watched Sunderland umpteen times, back end of last season and now, and you look at the personnel, you look at the squad, it's the best squad in the division, in my mind, but they cannot produce performances over 90 minutes. It's little pockets of pressure that they can get, but they just can't seem to do it consistently over a 90-minute period. And I love the business they did in the summer. Willis, I think, was a Rolls Royce for Coventry. He's not been able to be particularly consistent. I thought McNulty would fire 15, 20 goals, no problem at all with the players around him. He's got a couple, but that's not really happened. And listen, Jack Ross is the one that's sending them out, and ultimately we're not on the training ground. But if he is sending them out there, with the handbrake on to a degree, then he's going to come under pressure because he's got the tools there to be blowing teams away at that level, in my mind. So it's not going to get any easier. I know him a little bit on a personal level, and I know his staff, and they're good guys. Jack's a brilliant bloke, and his staff are really bubbly characters, good football people. But I can't see this going away. I think the pressure is only going to intensify, and there's been results where you think, oh, it's going to turn. They've had the odd convincing result. I remember away to Accrington this season, and a couple of home games which they've managed to win, but they've not been able to back that up. The selection looks inconsistent as well. McGeady not playing from the start yesterday, and not being able to get a tune out of Charlie Wyke and Will Grigg and McNulty to a degree is very alarming. So yeah, it's not going away anytime soon, and I wouldn't be surprised if they replaced him.
We'll have to wait and see. 2 defeats only this season, but it's the nature of those performances, like we say, that the fans are frustrated with. At the moment, they're about 4 points, I think, 4 or 5 points off the automatic. So they won't want that gap to grow too much with the ambitions of their ownership and their stated ambitions of promotion this season. I think it would be a failure if they didn't achieve it based on the budget and the squad that they've got there. So that is one thing to bear in mind. Rotherham, massive win for them yesterday. If you were writing a book on how not to defend, then Coventry City have done all your work for you, and I just recommend you watch this. It's a bloopers DVD for Christmas. Come early this. It was ridiculous defending. Coventry fans tweeting at me on social media saying that, you know, we've given them this one, and there's some quite good gifs and memes out there regarding it at the end of the game. But it's an important win for Rotherham. 4-0, comprehensive. Murmurs about Paul Warne starting to lose some of his support after a disappointing couple of results. But I think, you know, the way they played, the way they pressured, very important. But yeah, Coventry need to cut out those mistakes. Tranmere, Mickey Mellon against his old side. They lost 1-0 to Shrewsbury. Now Shrewsbury I don't know. I mean, they go from conceding 3 one week to defensive solidity the next. So very, very difficult to see which one's going to turn up, which side's going to turn up. But this one, again, showed good defensive play, getting the goal, getting a nice away performance, similar to the game against Rotherham a couple of weeks ago. But this one, obviously, managing to find a winner. So fair play to Sam Ricketts. He was delighted with that performance. And a good 900 or so Salopians made the trip to Tranmere to give that game a bit of atmosphere, good support on the road from Shrewsbury. MK Dons lost 3-0 to Burton. Burton can be very silky when they want to. They can play some lovely football. Scott Fraser is one of my favourite players at this level. I think he's been a brilliant signing for the Brewers. MK Dons struggling a little bit, Sam. A lot of injuries. I still think Paul Tisdale's an excellent coach, but he'll be a little bit concerned at the run that they're on at the moment.
Yeah, and bad injuries. I think that's what he's pointed towards. A couple of lads I know well, Moore Taylor, I think, was a Rolls Royce for them and allowed them to. Well, I think he was a big part of the system that they played, the three at the back for majority of last season. He's unavailable. Jordan Houghton, we know that his versatility is a big bonus for Paul Tisdale as well. So it sounded like they were quite long yesterday, quite direct, which, you know, people that maybe just watch Paul Tisdale's teams fleetingly would be surprised about. But, you know, Tiz always has a plan for every team that he's meeting, irrelevant of, you know, how well they're going or how well his team's going. He can change it up. He's very versatile as a manager. You know, I remember playing games when we completely bypassed the midfield at Exeter, and it sounds like they were a little bit direct yesterday. And, you know, missing Agard as well. So there's a few injury problems. I'm sure they'll be competitive this year. It's maybe not going to be a season where they're, you know, tussling with the playoff teams. But, yeah, I mean, well beaten by Burton yesterday, and welcome goals from Boyce, because he's been not scored in 10 or 11 games. So very important to get him back going. Some exceptional performances. Reece Hutchinson was excellent up and down from left back as well. And probably one of the best goals of the day from Sarkic. Beautiful flowing move and a wonderful finish. So a good day for Burton. And no, I agree with you, Fraser. I've always liked their midfield. I think great mobility, great rotation, and Fraser's a big part of that as well.
Lucas Akins, who is a fantastic player. He was playing at right back yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's versatility and his service to Burton as a player has been second to none. You do mention injuries for MK Dons. They're leading the line with Jordan Bowery. He was a bit player at Crewe in the division below last season. So I mean, it does highlight the sort of the difficulties that they've got at the minute. But one team that has no difficulties at all and hasn't taken time to adapt to this level is Ipswich Town. They took on Fleetwood. Both these sides, if you look at the data, deserve to be right up there. Fleetwood with some of the best defensive and attacking XG. Same with Ipswich. Ipswich came out on top in a close game. That is a fantastic result, though, for Ipswich, Sam, because going to Fleetwood is very, very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, they've been flying, haven't they? And I mean, there's no surprise when you look down the squad that Joey Barton's got available. I like them in all departments, really. I thought they've done some brilliant work in their transfer market. Nice balance in midfield with Coots. Obviously, we know what he achieved a couple of seasons ago. Rossiter's been a success so far. and the options at the top end of the pitch. I spoke about it the other day. I mean, if you were putting together a top 10 of League One, League Two number 9s, you'd probably have Ched Evans and Paddy Madden on it. So he's got the luxury of rotating them or bringing Madden off the bench to great effect. So no surprise that Fleetwood are going well. Sounded a bit ugly yesterday. I mean, you just need to look at the amount of yellow cards. It tells you that it was a bit of a fight. But Ipswich, again, getting the job done. And I suppose the first point is when you've got two strikers that are at the top of their game, I think that's 11 between them now. I think Jackson's maybe got one more than Norwood and missed the penalty yesterday. Gives you a great chance. And you have to have the platform. Lambert started with a 3-5-2 last week, went to a 4-4-2 at half-time, showed his tactical nous against Tranmere, I think it was, and yesterday back to the 3. And Chambers, Wolfenden, those two in particular, the numbers back it up in terms of the clearances and the tackles won. They've been fantastic with the goalkeeper as well. It's an incredible defensive record they've had. That was the first goal in a number of games that they conceded last time up against Tranmere, and back to getting a clean sheet yesterday. So a great victory for them.
Yeah, 6 clean sheets in the last 7 games and the best defensive record in the top 4 tiers of English football. It just goes to show what a good job Paul Lambert's done. I think the man deserves a lot of credit. I was a bit scathing of that appointment when they made it in the Championship. I wasn't convinced that Lambert was the man, but to be fair to him, although he was unable to arrest the slide at the end of last season, he's done a fantastic job of changing the whole mentality, which is very hard to do, and turn it around in a summer and start pushing them now back in the right direction. I think they've done some nifty recruitment and getting a tune out of Caden Jackson, who before yesterday was statistically the most clinical striker in the division based on his shots to goals ratio. So I'm really pleased for him because he was excellent at Accrington, and I hope he has a big future and continues to do as well as he has. Portsmouth, massive result for them, massive pressure on Kenny Jackett. Interesting that they go there. It takes a last-minute gorgeous header from Ellis Harrison. That was lovely to watch that float into the top corner. Portsmouth, it's been interesting because we talk about their XG data. I mean, they've got the best offensive XG in the division before today. So it's a surprise that they've been struggling. But Kenny Jackett is an experienced man, a little bit like the Jack Ross situation, Sam. Where do you stand on Kenny Jackett and the Portsmouth pressure? Because I think I'd be reluctant to get rid of Kenny Jackett if I was manager of any club, really, or chairman of any club, rather. Yeah. I think he needs to be given this season, probably, on the back of where they finished last year, went very close. I look at the Portsmouth team, and when I watch them, I think you're right to make the comparison with Sunderland. I'm not off the edge of my seat very often. I think they lack a little bit of creativity, a bit of a spark. Obviously, Harness came back in yesterday, who can be that for them. But I look at the midfield, and I know Close has done a lot better in the last few months, and obviously got an eye for a goal. But I just think sometimes that's where they can get dominated. And now I've not been a huge fan of him and Naylor, although they've made good strides. But it's Kenny Jackett. It's a reliable lineup. It's a team that are going to grind out results. They're not going to put teams to the sword too often. But yeah, I think you'd have to look at his track record. You'd have to look at, I don't know if there's been loads of progress, but look what they achieved last year, where they got to last year with the addition of Marquis and the firepower that they've got. You've got to hope that they're going to turn it around. But it sounded like they were second best for large portions yesterday, which is pretty alarming, really. I know Doncaster have had a great start, but arguably missing the two lads who have been having the biggest impact in Ennis at the top end of the pitch, and John, the centre half from Wolves. I mean, he's already getting admiring glances from the Premier League. So it sounds like if they'd have had their main men in there yesterday, especially at the business ends of the pitch, we could be talking about another Portsmouth draw or potential defeat. So got away with one yesterday with like you say, an outstanding Harrison header. Indeed, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Doncaster, though, have been really impressive this season. A bit of a boring game at Adams Park yesterday. Absolutely nothing happened apart from the 6 goals that flew in. It's becoming a habit, this Wycombe. I don't know if they do it just for the entertainment value, but they want to give their fans value for money, so they let opposition get well ahead, and then they storm back. And it's happened time and time again since Gareth Ainsworth took charge. And yesterday, although aided by a dodgy penalty, has to be said, but if you're playing Peterborough, who have some of the best attacking players at this level, they're all firing, they're all scoring as we know, and they did it again yesterday. You've got to show character, and it's a word that's used quite a lot in football, character, but there's no doubt that if you are able to come back time and time again in games, you're brilliant at home, and you've got Gareth Ainsworth as your manager, that is going to be a big part of your makeup.
Yeah, and you're right to highlight how well Peterborough have been doing, and the way that Ferguson sets them up. I think he just gives them a freedom. Obviously, he's playing this diamond this season, and it's getting the best out of Maddison and obviously the two front boys. So you would think the majority of the teams at that level, when you've conceded, to roll over a little bit, but it's just not in their DNA at all, is it? And it's not a fluke. You're right. Gareth Ainsworth obviously has them highly motivated. They know they can come back from the dead to take points. And obviously Akinfenwa was the man yesterday, but there's loads of firepower in that squad. You talk about Smith from QPR, Wheeler, Onyedinma, lovely balanced midfield, it's quite consistent selection there as well. So no surprises that they achieved another great comeback yesterday. But right to highlight the penalty, I thought it was a little bit naughty from Kashket. Maybe that's not the right word, but I felt that he played for that, and Dan Butler couldn't really do anything about it. So I'm sure Darren Ferguson wasn't best pleased, but fantastic entertainment again at Adams Park, and you seem to get it most weeks.
Yeah. There's very rarely a sort of a dull game. I mean, they've had a couple this season, but credit. I mean, Wycombe's second in the table at this point in the season. 12 games in, only lost the one. It's a fantastic start. Huge credit to all the guys working hard behind the scenes. But Gareth Ainsworth has slowly built that team up. He's been given time. He's been given faith by the owners. Again, we talk about the quick changeover and turnover of managers. I think if you give a manager time and to build something, and you have faith in him, look at how he's repaying them, and it's an absolute joy to see. Oxford United, we end on them this week. Talked a lot about them last week. We go to Accrington, we get a 2-2 draw. I thought at the end of the day I'd have taken that before the game, because Accrington are a notorious bogey side of Oxford. I think only Fleetwood probably would come to mind as one that we do worse against on a regular basis. John Coleman got his side playing very high press, closing us down. I'd say the injuries didn't help Oxford. Ben Woodburn and Ford going off. Ford actually replaced Woodburn, and then himself had to be replaced. So that sort of broke up our rhythm. But we were kind of let down a little bit by Simon Eastwood. He's a fantastic keeper, but just when you don't want to concede a goal, he came up for a cross, missed it, and allowed them to get an easy equaliser. But it's been a fantastic couple of weeks for Oxford. I know you were at the West Ham game, Sam. We've looked very impressive, I think.
Yeah, you have. I've actually done a little bit in the Football League paper, James, today about Oxford. Only a few paragraphs, but that's how impressed I've been through gritted teeth.
Okay.
I think they were brilliant against West Ham. I mean, I was really taken aback, especially the amount of changes that Carl Robinson's made. I know that Henry, Woodburn, Fosu, that should be the best three behind a central striker in the division. I mean, no question, with the different attributes that they've got, the quality players. But to make that amount of changes and batter a Premier League side as they did was incredible. And I think the standout thing for me is Sykes. I don't know too much about him, the wide player. I mean, he was like Ronaldo that night when he went wide on the right-hand side, and he's not been able to get in the 18 the last two games, which made me really sit back and go, they've got a chance this year. So yesterday, I think you bang on that sometimes you just have to dust yourselves down and go, that's a good point, against a team which is always difficult to get any change out of. I used to hate going there. I used to get smashed from pillar to post, and be on the coach on the way home and go, please don't make me have to go back there next year. It's very difficult place to go. And they've got two very young strikers, two inexperienced strikers. Obviously, Charles, I think Leamington, where he scored his goals, and the other chap, I Colby Bishop was at Southport, I think. So that's the market that they shop in. John Coleman, and he gets a tune. But yesterday, Zanzala actually was the standout, wasn't it? Coming on at half time.
Made a big difference, yeah.
Yeah, and he did well with Billy Key last year. So obviously I know Key's not available, but I was expecting bigger things from Zanzala this year. So there's no surprise that he came on and had an impact. And I think you're right to highlight those two injuries, which clearly had an effect on Oxford. But no, I mean, Baptiste, another one I'd like to highlight from that West Ham game. Exceptional talent he looks, and defensively they've looked great, even being able to leave more on the bench, who's another one who impressed me, Dickey and Messinho. I think Messinho's right up there as well when you're talking about clearances and the statistical side of things. So fantastic start to this. Well, not necessarily got the points return, but the last few weeks, as you say, James, they're looking in fine fettle.
Yeah, very impressed the last few weeks. Nice to see. Mark Sykes, the guy you chat about, got him from Ireland. Created the most chances per 90 minutes of any Oxford player last season, although his sample size was slightly small. He looks like he could be technically a very, very good player. And the fact that he's not got in the team, he was actually put up for loan. And I'm so surprised no one took that option, because I think if someone in League Two, for example, had got him in their squad, he would have ripped it up. I mean, he's such a good, young, hungry player, and I think signed sort of in a Gavin White mould where they looked to Ireland and thought, this guy's too good for these leagues, let's bring him in. And we nipped in before Port Vale could sign him, actually, and very impressed with him when I've seen him. But the fact he's not getting in the team highlights like what good quality we've got in midfield this season. My only concern, we don't have a deep squad, so we've just got to be very careful, and injuries can quickly disrupt us, especially at the back, where one centre back goes down, we're on the only other one we've got, really. So I hope it lasts. But it's a fantastic start to the season, and like you say, like last few weeks has been exceptionally good, and ninth at the moment. That's better than I thought we'd be, to be fair. When we looked at the recruitment coming in late in the summer, I thought we were going to struggle, but it's been nice to see us doing quite well. Those results leave Ipswich top, as I said, Wycombe second. The playoff places are taken up by Fleetwood, Coventry, Blackpool and Sunderland down to 6th, just clinging in there ahead of Peterborough. Bolton, Southend and AFC Wimbledon. No surprises that those are the three teams in those bottom three places at the moment, with Tranmere and Rochdale just outside. Right, let's jump down into League Two.
League Two.
Loads of great action happening in League Two. I think one of the biggest news pieces that came out sort of midweek, Sam, was Mike Flynn's new contract with Newport. Now, it was highlighted to me that may not mean anything in terms of him staying, because I think Shrewsbury fans pointed out that Paul Hurst signed a new contract shortly before leaving to Ipswich. But it does put Newport in a position where they can get greater compensation if that does happen. I mean, he's a man who will clearly manage at a higher level. He's been absolutely superb since going into Newport County. This season they've conceded just 6 goals. They've got the joint top XG goals against in League Two prior to this game with Exeter, Walsall and Swindon. Another 1-0 winner at home. I saw them play Swindon last weekend, and they put in the perfect away performance. That man deserves huge credit for what he's done at the club.
Yeah, done a brilliant job. Brilliant guy. I won't pretend to know him particularly well, but when I've had any dealings with him, he's one of a kind, really. So I'd imagine it's a really vibrant dressing room. Good person to play for. I'm sure he's good with the players because he was a fundamental part of all the dressing rooms that he played in. And they're very uncompromising, would be the first word I'd use. Very organised. Obviously, he leans on Lenny Lawrence a lot there as well. I think they've had some standout players defensively so far this season, after losing a number as well. The goalkeeper, Butler, we've already spoken about, that went to Peterborough. So King's been excellent, the goalkeeper. O'Brien, I'd highlight defensively. I think he's been fantastic. Scott Bennett, a lad I know, who's obviously such a versatile lad, played with them at Exeter. I think he's important to add them a bit of stability in the midfield. And the front two, I mean, you say that you talk about the Swindon performance there. If you're ever down on central defenders or defensively, as Swindon are at the moment, last team in the division you want to play is Newport, because that front two, it's pretty basic. old-fashioned, if you like, what they do, but it's not half successful and difficult to stop. And Matt's probably one of the best targets in the division in terms of taking balls on his chest and knocking things down for Paddy Hammond. So, yeah, good balance across the piece. Important to tie him down, but he'll continue to be linked to jobs. And as you say, James, it will safeguard them and make sure that they get a nice bit of dough when he does move on.
Yeah, I'm sure. He's a fantastic chap to have dealt with. Obviously we interviewed him last season and gave us a lot of time. Really talented coach. Really believe in what he's doing there. And I think when you look at the resources he's got compared to others, he does a fantastic job. His midfield works so hard. I think Sheehan is one of the players that I admire the most in that team. I think they got him from Swansea and he's been absolutely brilliant since going there. And Wilmot as well, whose delivery of set pieces has been really excellent this season. So brilliant stuff. They beat Carlisle, who obviously have had an up and down season. They've had some couple of good results on the road, and they'll be disappointed to concede late. But it was pretty much an unstoppable winner, to be fair. And
that was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, and it's from a good young loanee from Bristol City in Nurse, and they've got a good relationship with Bristol City. A few good loan players they've had over the last couple of seasons have put them in good stead. Forest Green, though, a team I want to have a quick chat about now because they beat Crawley yesterday 3-1. Now, Crawley going into this game had the most shots per game than anyone else in the top 4 tiers of English football going into this one, except for Manchester City. So they are a team that like to attack. The XG data shows that they're quite vulnerable at the back in terms of giving away goal-scoring chances. Forest Green have conceded, like Newport, just 6 goals this season. Fantastic defensive record. Great number of clean sheets in the last few games. I think it's 5 in the last 6 prior to this one. This is the first goal they conceded in ages. I mean, really, really good stuff from Forest Green. Again, though, Sam, it's about an owner trusting his manager. They've converted him to head coach this week, and obviously there was a bit of news about that. I think that's probably not particularly relevant at all. I think that's kind of the model that they've had for a little while there. Mark Cooper, when he had a bad run, he was shown great faith by Dale Vince, and he's progressed year on year. So every year that he's been there, they've progressed. And I thought this season would be quite tricky for them personally, because I think losing Doidge and James in midfield, it looked like, you've lost a couple of very good players. How are you going to cope with that? And yet and obviously George Williams breaking his leg on day one didn't help, and yet they've been brilliant.
Yeah, that was the worry, wasn't it? Doidge and Brown moving on, because they combined for so many goals. But
yeah, Brown. Sorry, I think I said James, but yeah, Brown. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, what I didn't envisage happening was them becoming so much better defensively. I think I heard it was 8 hours and 28 minutes. I don't know if I just made that up. The last time they conceded before yesterday, which is incredible. I think the standout probably has been Joseph Mills at left wing back. He's been outstanding, got himself a couple of goals. That's why I'm highlighting him, really, because I think that's not been spoken about too often. I think he's probably been their standout player. But I know Mark Cooper very, very well. Big fan of the type of football he plays. I noticed his long-standing assistant manager, well, certainly a colleague, Scott Lindsay, worked with him at Swindon as well. I think left the club this week. So there has been a reshuffle. I was a little bit surprised, I suppose, to see that they've changed his job title, and I just thought, what's going on there? But no, he's a big part of what they do. And from yesterday, looking at it, Stevens and Collins, the two front players, and Stevens heavily involved in a couple of the goals, and Collins getting a goal that he really needed. So talking about those players they lost, it looks like the lads that they've got in situ now are starting to get to grips with the level, because they're quite inexperienced. And you can add Aitchison to that as well, the lad on loan from Celtic, who's had a really good impact. So
yeah, it looks really sharp, doesn't he?
He does, and he's used him fleetingly, really, getting him up to speed, using him off the bench to affect games, but now ready to go in from the off. But I think, I've touched on Mills, but I think him and Shepherd, I always like that if they're, playing as the wing backs, and obviously Matt Mills is in there as well. So defensively looking great, and expect Mark Cooper to, probably get them into the playoff picture again this year.
Yeah, I think so. Interestingly, that they're outperforming their XG goals against. So it'd be interesting to see whether there's any drop in that defensive sort of effort or stability going forward. Farron Rawson has been really, really solid player for them the last couple of seasons. Big fan of his. I think he's done well. But you've highlighted the wing backs. I don't think there's a better pair of wing backs at this level than Mills and Shepherd, to be honest. Bernard, I think it is, or Bernard did really well to cover for Shepherd when he's been injured at the first part of the season. But really impressive Forest Green.
I tell you what, James, you look at the bench now as well. You've got a lot of starters there from last season that can't get in, the likes of Rawson and McGinley. And I understand I've got a couple of close contacts there. James Morton, who I think is on loan from Bristol City as well, has been a Rolls Royce in the midfield at times this year, and he's not getting in that 11. Certainly didn't play yesterday. So, yeah, not big names, is it? It's not household names, not even, EFL veterans really across the piece, but he seems to have selection problems at the moment, Mark Cooper, which is a great thing.
Yeah, Abu Adams as well. So last couple of weeks has been excellent. And like you say, they're not household names, but technically, I think he picks very technically good players. He's got a good eye for it, and it works in his system, and clearly has been working fantastically well. I'm quite surprised how well they've done at the back. I always thought they were a bit suspect, but what can you say? I mean, it's been brilliant. You're top of the league after 12 games. You're not going to argue with that at all. The big game yesterday, or the one that was billed as this table topper, I did enjoy David Artell's comments about it not being particularly as big as people were making out. He makes me laugh, David. But a 1-1 draw. Exeter absolutely battered them first half. Really impressed with the way they came out of the blocks against a Crewe side that have been so good. Exeter topped the XG charts before yesterday's game. Crewe were third in that table, so clearly both attacking-wise have got a lot about them. I just think both managers have done a fantastic job. I mean, Crewe, we give Crewe a lot of credit because of the way they bring through young players, but actually Exeter's academy as well, and their use of youngsters has been superb. And Matt Taylor, he took over from Tisdale, and I think he's done a terrific job.
Yeah, I mean, I won't name check it, but we spoke to Matt Taylor on my other podcast last week, and what an impressive guy, James. And I wasn't too au fait with his story. I know that he was kind of one of Paul Tisdale's guys, if you like, but he played university football, and obviously very late coming into the game. I think he was working as well, when he left university, had a proper job. So it's been a different road for him, but spoke brilliantly, spoke about that academy. Obviously, Collins is playing in the midfield at the moment.
Archie
Collins, Matt Jay, who I played.
What a player. Young guy, doesn't get much. I mean, I keep getting in trouble from Exeter fans for bigging him up too much on Twitter because they're trying to oi, shush, we don't want anyone coming in. But he actually I think he set up the goal yesterday for Dean Moxey with a wonderful cross. But he's quiet. He's one of these guys who quietly goes about his business week in, week out. Yet he's only, 20, 21? Fantastic midfielder.
Yeah, he's done brilliantly. The only other one really alongside Collins is Matt Jay. That's still at the club. He's, I think, impacted games as well, not always from the start, but from the bench. And Dean Moxey, the goal scorer yesterday, that experience, yes, it's a fantastic thing. He's obviously got great history at Exeter, but he's been brilliant as part of that back three. And Bowman, yesterday, not his day in front of goal. He passed up a number of opportunities. He has an incredible amount of shots, and he wins an incredible amount of balls aerially. So he's a big part of what they do, and probably him not having his shooting boots on yesterday cost them the extra 2 points, because I thought they were good enough in that first half to have had the game won. I know Crewe improved after the break and had their spell, which ultimately got them the draw. But I think Matt Taylor, he's bemoaning the lack of a clinical edge to the game, and not just the strikers. He highlighted the whole pitch yesterday, which is the right thing to do. But yeah, incredibly good start from Taylor. Expect some other clubs to come sniffing around, because I think he's already shown that he knows exactly what he's doing. And yeah, on Crewe, I mean, I did a bit of background on them a couple of weeks ago, and again, I looked at it yesterday. I think there's 7 starters from the academy yesterday. And another 3 on the bench, which is just incredible numbers. I mean, you can't not want them to be successful when they're doing that type of thing. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm a little bit off there, but such a flourishing youth system there. Love Kirk. Obviously, Lowry's been getting a lot of plaudits recently. And that said, it was Anine, who's on loan from Norway, isn't he? That got the goal yesterday.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not one of the youth products getting them the goal yesterday, but quite an interesting signing, I suppose, for the EFL.
I spoke to David Artell about that signing when they announced it down at Crawley, and they did a lot of background checks on him. They sort of really did their homework on him, and they thought he'd come in and be I think basically they wanted someone to back up Porter, because obviously he's not going to be able to play week in, week out, and this guy's got strength, decent finish yesterday, and I think he's pretty much what they were expecting him to be. One player that didn't play yesterday because he was suspended was Perry NG, but he is such an exciting player, and I spoke to him at the end of the Crawley game as well, and I was saying to him, you keep your feet on the ground for such a young player, and he said, well, I'm one of the veterans here now, and he's like 23 or something like that. Crazy.
Yeah, it's like, we all want to highlight Kirk because he's got that lovely ability on the ball, and Lowry's been devastating the last few weeks, but yeah, he's been brilliant in G, hasn't he?
Him and Ryan Wintle are the kind of like players that do all the stuff that Kirk doesn't want to do, and they do it really, really well, and it works well as a team. Brilliant stuff.
And there was that brilliant few quotes from Artell a few weeks ago when Ipswich signed the Colchester right back, Vincent Young, and I think Artell maybe I'm not sure why he gauged the subject, he approached the subject, but he said, "God, they've missed out there. They've done me a right touch, because NG is the best right back in the lower leagues by a country mile." So, he's been brilliant this year. Not to say that Vincent Young hasn't had a great start at Ipswich, but yeah, Crewe have got themselves a diamond defensively, as well as that midfield player Lowry and Kirk, who seems to really revel in that role high on the left-hand side. I read some quotes from him saying that he was a left midfielder really a couple of years ago in a different system, and he's completely been able to express himself going and playing high, and where he hasn't got so much defensive responsibility on his shoulders.
Indeed, wonderful game, and a great club. Both of them great clubs, doing well. Leyton Orient, massive win for them in a game which was poignant for the tributes paid to Justin Edinburgh. They've struggled a little bit under Ross Embleton, who's decided to go back to being an assistant coach. I hope they get the managerial situation there sorted quickly, because I think that'll be important. But a very big win, because they've struggled to get those results over the line. They've had a few injuries as well to some of their more experienced players, and I think that result will be seen as pretty much what they needed right now. Oldham and Cheltenham have been flying. Oldham will take that. A 1-1 draw. Their goalkeeper, Zeus Lapaz. Zeus, lovely name, and he's actually, I think, a really good keeper when he wants to be. Nearly let slip a goal in the first half, but they sort of panic stations managed to save it, and then he made that brilliant save at the end to get Oldham an important point. Plymouth 2, Scunthorpe 2. Really good result for Scunthorpe going to Plymouth, who play a lot of good football. They have a lot of shots. They have a lot of the ball. They've not been clinical enough this season, though they have had really inconsistent problems due to injuries to their forward players. However, Scunthorpe interestingly have one of the best XGs in the division, so they create a lot of good quality scoring chances. Whether or not they're taking them is another thing, but they do have the problem at the back where they give up some of the most high class chances or high quality chances. So to go to Plymouth and get a result, more frustration for Argyle fans, who I think sometimes have suggested already they want to see a little bit more flexibility in the kind of football Ryan Lowe's playing. I would suggest that they enjoy what he does do there, and when they get their players fit, they'll probably start really firing, because they do create good chances. Colchester, Sam, they knocked Tottenham out and Crystal Palace at the Cup. They had a slow start to the league, but they're really starting to motor now. Very impressed with the way they set up as well, because they're another team that have a very good youth academy. John McGreal came under a little bit of pressure not so long ago, but quietly and assuredly, they're doing exactly what I thought they'd do, and they're starting to pick up some very important results. Only one defeat now, I think, in the last probably 10 games, and a 3-1 win over Stevenage yesterday.
Yeah, and it shouldn't really be of any surprise, I think, when you look at the players available to them. And I think the early part of last season, I was ever so excited about Colchester, especially going forward. I think it was just getting it right, maybe the balance, and defensively getting them a little bit more sound. And just the 10 goals conceded so far from the 12 games. That's pretty good going, really. And I really like Eastman and Prosser. I know they're, certainly in Prosser's case, getting on a little bit now. I'm not sure what age Eastman is, but Prosser's a competitor. I used to not enjoy an afternoon against him. And Eastman is someone that can, well, certainly when I last saw him live, he's got a lovely habit of striking those crossfield balls. And, he can really hit pinpoint long balls, if you like. And they've got
They're keeping Swabney out of the team at the moment. He was one of their big obviously a local lad. He was a big signing this summer, and I expected him to start. But credit to those two who've obviously impressed enough to keep him out of the side most of this season so far.
No, and they made a couple of mistakes as well. Just as I'm singing their praises, they made a couple of costly mistakes a couple of weeks ago, a month ago or so. Both of them, I think, there was an own goal there, and a really bad one from Eastman at home when he collided with Gherkin. But they've remained in the team, so I think that just shows you how pivotal they are for Colchester. Brilliant in the cup, and yesterday, obviously, Newblay, when he's like that, so difficult to contain, and he probably should do it more often. And I heard him speaking in the wake of the Tottenham victory. Seems like a really good lad, actually. I don't know him, Newblay, but seems like a good character. And they've got a few of those in that squad. Robinson as well. Norris, obviously a player I know particularly well as well. So I'm not surprised at all. Giovanni Brown coming off the bench yesterday, another one. So the attacking talent is there. It was probably just marrying the two together, getting the other end of the pitch right. So, no, I expect them to go stronger than last year. And even though Stevenage had spells in that game, and I know Mark Sampson was disappointed because he felt they did pretty well, they were well beaten in the end yesterday.
When do you get worried if you're Stevenage owner about not having a win so far this season? It's 12 games now?
When you get cut away, and they're on the verge of that happening now. There's what are they? They are, they're 6 points away from Oldham in 21st. So there's a little bit of a gap appearing between the bottom three and the rest. And I'm scratching my head because when I saw them last season towards the tail end, I enjoyed their performances. Obviously, Elias Chair was a big part of that. And I've seen him recently for QPR. He looks like an exceptionally talented player, so we shouldn't be surprised the impact that he had in League Two. And there's a lot of the same players that did the business for them the back end of last season. Kennedy, I know, was at Newport, and Cowley's come in from non-league, but Guthrie was sensational. Obviously, Cuthbert and Nugent, you would think at that level would still be good defensively, but for whatever reason, Dino Marmaria wasn't able to replicate what he had last year. And,
a lot of injury problems, to be fair to him.
Yes,
at one point, they had all three of their established centre backs out. In fact, they had a 19-year-old and maybe someone even younger playing at centre back. Even Tom Sawes was sort of filling in. The midfielder was filling in for a lot of it. So that has really scuppered them. But it doesn't at the moment seem like they're going to get a win from anywhere. And I think that'll be the concern. They've got their senior guys slowly coming back now. Is it, when you get in a rut like this, how difficult is it to sort of climb out of it?
I think it's very difficult. You prefer it to happen at this stage of the season, I would say, even though your hands are tied to a degree in terms of what you can do in the transfer market. So I think it's not too early to say that they'll want to be in a position to be competitive in terms of the points return in January, but also be able to maybe bring a few in. But I don't know how easy that would be. I know the kind of director of football there quite well, Leon Hunter. So he'll be working hard to try and sort this out. But they seem to have a guy who obviously has got good experience, maybe not in Football League terms, but in good experience coaching. And you just hope for the Stevenage fans' point of view that they can turn it around quickly and make themselves competitive. I think the personnel is there, and that's why I'm a little confused. And I think Guthrie, yes, he can't do it all by himself, but I thought he was fantastic back in the last year, not with his goal scoring, not just his goal scoring, but I like the way that he chases lost causes and he can carry the ball as well. He's a nice mover across the turf, and I think he can be a real good foil for someone. So maybe it's who he can be paired with or who can play alongside him is going to be important moving forward.
Yeah, massive player from last season. Let's hope they turn it around. Port Vale, Tom Pope inspired 3-1 win over really struggling Morecambe. Tom Pope loves scoring against Morecambe. I think it's like 6 goals he scored in 7 games or 7 in 6, something ridiculous against them. And he scored more goals against Morecambe in his career than any other team. So he clearly loves playing against them. And actually, to be fair, that header was typical Tom Pope, but the second goal was a lovely finish. Port Vale slowly progressing under Askey. Really nice to see the club feeling more positive after the Norman Smurthwaite era, which was pretty vicious towards the end. So great stuff for them. Walsall, a few injuries and losing obviously Rory Gaffney because he was illegible to play yesterday because of the loan agreement. They got smashed 3-0 by Salford, and Darryl Clark basically said in his post-match that it was men against boys, and that when he's got key senior players missing, it's like a development squad at Walsall. And I think he's just frustrated a little bit that they've lost that game after turning a corner seemingly, but it's going to take time. He said, they're miles off a top 7 team as it stands, and maybe he's just needs a bit of patience. I'm a big fan of Darryl Clark, great manager, great coach, great determination, and I like the fact he never minces his words, which is nice from a manager. He's one of those guys that they all have media training and sometimes are very careful what they say, but he wears his heart in his sleeve and speaks his mind, and that's nice to have from a coach. John Dempster, he's been under huge pressure, and rightly so, you'd argue, with Mansfield's budget and the playing staff that they got. They beat Grimsby 1-0 yesterday, very late goal. The only thing I'd say about Mansfield is that they should be doing better. I think John Dempster does deserve his chance. He's a club man. He's been there a long time, done well with the youth team. But they do have this habit, Sam, of people being sent off. I mean, they must have had more red cards at the start of last season than any other team, I would imagine, looking at the figures. I mean, Hayden White yesterday, another very silly red card as well, needless lunge.
Yeah, rash challenges. There's been a few, hasn't there? Similar to yesterday.
Preston. He had 2 this season.
That was the one that I was just thinking of. Yeah, overrunning the ball and steaming into challenges, which you can't do. And it sounds like maybe they had a bit of a helping hand, not in terms of that decision, but I read a bit last night. The Grimsby fans not happy with Paul Marsden, the referee, who had a bit of an off day by all accounts, to put it lightly. And I think with Mansfield, I mean, it sounded like they were good value yesterday in that Grimsby didn't use the extra man at all well, didn't move the ball quick enough, didn't work the opposition and create chances. And the likes of Robson and Hesenthaler, even the front boys, Ogbu, Hansen, who have been so good recently, had an off day. So I think good value yesterday, Mansfield. Looking at it, I think Danny Rose has probably been the striker who's been in the best nick. I think we anticipated Maynard and maybe Cook being far too good for this level and probably firing Mansfield really close. Not happened like that to this point. So I like Rose.
In fairness, I think to John Dempster as well, those two that you've just mentioned have both had injury problems. I would be interested to see when they're both fit and firing how clinical Mansfield become, because in terms of chances, they do tend to create some good opportunities. Yeah.
No, I think, that's why I wanted to highlight Rose, just because I think there was a lot of noise about the other two. And if it's been injury problems, then maybe they'll still come good and be paired together. But I think Rose is a good player and sometimes goes under the radar. I've liked him for a number of years. I remember speaking to David Flitcroft about him, and good player, good attitude as well. So I think he's going to be important for them. It's going to take there's been a bit of patience already with the manager, you would suggest, because of the budget and what's gone before. And David Flitcroft, of course, got them to the playoffs, but couldn't remain in the job. So there's always pressure. We'll have to see how they respond after getting a good away victory. And Pearce with a goal, who is one of those lower league centre-halves who I think could probably go on again. I'm not sure exactly how old he is now, but I think he's impressive, and he's kind of the linchpin for that side defensively anyway. I think he's
absolutely absolutely agree with that. I think he's a fantastic defender, probably one of the best at this level,
Hmm.
for sure. Bradford, they beat Swindon 2-1.
Yeah.
Jerry Yates scored a cracking goal and then missed one of the easiest chances of the weekend right at the end. So look away, Jerry Yates, on the highlights for that one. But he's been a good signing. Owen Doyle, obviously, not able to play yesterday. I think Swindon, obviously, the defeat to Newport at home last week and the defeat here, obviously centre-back crisis right now with Baudry injured, Conroy out. Not sure Broadbent has quite earned his place in the team with the performances he's put in this season. He had a bit of a disappointment coming off the bench against Colchester. But, yeah, it was a tough defeat, wasn't it, at Bradford? Because it was quite an even game by all accounts, although the assistant manager suggested Bradford did deserve the points.
Yeah, I saw that interview. Very honest. He has been since he's come to the club, actually, which is nice and refreshing. As is Richie Wellens. Centre halves. That's the problem at the moment. Zakuanu obviously came in yesterday and was excellent defensively by all accounts. So he'll get better with the game time. But yes, maybe I'm a little biased, but last time I saw them was at Leyton Orient, and I mean, if that's with that 11. If that's not a team that are going to get in the top three, then I'd find it very difficult to envisage. I mean, if they had the centre halves fit, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they were outstanding at Leyton Orient, and the type of footballer they were playing before and just after that performance was fantastic for me, being a former player, seeing finally Richie Wellens, a manager, given an opportunity to build, but also to instill a type of football. And the players have taken it on board and they're looking very exciting. They just have been dealt a bad hand with this defensive crisis, and it looks like Dion Conroy is going to be out for the majority of the season. I think Baudry's not as bad. So without them, it's going to be a struggle to maintain anywhere near that level of form. But going forward, the front six, if you like, fantastic. And a few people have said that Jerry Yates reminds them of me, which is a nice compliment at the moment because he's going brilliantly and obviously got the goal yesterday. You're right to highlight a bad miss, but he probably missed his mate Owen Doyle yesterday, and that maybe is what cost them nicking a point.
Yeah, I didn't think it was an all that bad a performance considering the defensive frailties they've got at the moment. Final game was Cambridge 2, Macclesfield 2. Macclesfield yet again not paying their players. We're not going to go into it now because it's something for another time, but it's just so disappointing to see the same problems rear their heads again. It was at the end of last season this came to light. It looked like they'd solved it. They put out a club statement saying that they've put structures in place to make sure it wouldn't happen again, and yet here we go, barely a quarter of the way into the new season, and yet again the players have appealed to the EFL to help them because they're not getting paid, and it's a familiar story. It's a disappointing one to hear. I mean, to be fair, the players put in a really good shift yesterday to get a point at Cambridge. We're a bit unlucky not to hold out for all three, but not something you want to see in football. And let's hope that at some point something changes. And, the owner there has to take responsibility, I think, as well. Because from what I've heard from certain players I speak to and certain fans that you talk to, they know that the guy is not necessarily doing what he should do by the club, and I think that's disappointing. But as we look at the table, Forest Green, Exeter and Newport fill those top three places. Crewe, Cheltenham, Bradford and Swindon in the playoffs in what is a very competitive sort of top 10 so far this season. Colchester, Grimsby just outside Plymouth sitting in 12th, but you feel that there's more to come from them this season. At the bottom, Stevenage obviously sit there in the only relegation place because only one goes down this season. I would be concerned if I was Morecambe. Having watched them play a few times this season, they look like they are in a bit of trouble, but they're 2 points above Stevenage as it stands. Sam, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes, James, been great stuff. Anytime, mate. It's a pleasure to come on and keep up the good work, mate. I've enjoyed listening to the odd pod this season. You're doing fantastically well, mate.
Thank you very much. And to all our fans who listen week in, week out, thank you so much for your support. Thank you to our patrons. If you want to join up and help support this podcast and our website, you can do for as little as 80p a month. The details are on the site. But yeah, I hope you guys have the rest of the week, a good rest of the week. And no matter what your result was this weekend, enjoy what is left of it. and we'll see you next week. Goodbye, guys.